Hello everyone, welcome back to Ashleigh F1. I am your host. Can I actually say that? It's fine, cut that out. Cut that out, cut that out. Hello everyone, welcome back to Ashleigh F1. I'm Ashleigh Arendse, and in today's video, I'll be doing a pre-season testing takeaway. So, what can we take away from the pre-season testing? Nothing. Hate to break it to you guys, but pre-season testing is not for the fans. It's really just for the teams and the drivers to gather data and gather information, pretty much like a practice session and a race weekend. So to be honest, this video is a little bit pointless, but I'm going to do the video anyway because why not? So let's first get into all the basic information about pre-season testing, what it's all about. So for the 2021 season, pre-season testing took place at the Bahrain International Circuit. For many years, pre-season testing has taken place at Catalonia in Spain. However, this year they decided to do pre-season testing in Bahrain, as the first race of the season is actually at Bahrain, so doing testing in the same location will ensure minimal travel and minimal contact with the virus and things like that. So as I said at the beginning of the video, testing is for all the teams and the drivers to gather data and information and to prepare for the upcoming World Championship season. Hence the term pre-season testing. So every year the teams have to build a new car, and the first time that they can see how that car performs on a track is at the pre-season testing. The pre-season testing is also for the drivers to get comfortable with racing again, especially for drivers who are changing teams or drivers that are rookies or haven't been in the sport for a long time. It's good for them to get used to a new car and get used to that feeling of racing. So, testing day one takeaways. The main event of testing day one was basically that there was a sandstorm. So in my opinion, any data that was gathered on this particular day was kind of pointless. The track was obviously not at its usual grip levels, and the track surface was different to what it normally is. So day one pre-season testing, for me, you can't really take much away from it. So the top dog of day one pre-season testing was Max Verstappen. Not only did he do the fastest lap of the entire first day, but he also completed the most laps of 138. The reason that he got the most laps was because he got the entire day of the pre-season testing. Most of the other teams decided to split the drivers equally each day. So for example, at McLaren, Daniel Ricciardo got the morning session of 4 hours and Lando Norris got the afternoon session of the same time, 4 hours. So Max basically got 8 hours to do those 138 laps. The second fastest driver of the entire first day sessions was Lando Norris. Third was Esteban Ocon, fourth was Lance Stroll, and fifth was Carlos Sainz. So I would say on the first day of pre-season testing, the Red Bull looked the best and the most reliable. Max completed all of those laps without having any reliability issues and only having a half spin throughout the entirety of the session. I would say the team that looked a little bit more vulnerable than expected was the Mercedes. In the morning session, the Merc had a gearbox issue which restricted Bottas to only 6 laps within those 4 hours. But even in the afternoon session, the Mercedes still lacked a lot of pace, and Hamilton only completed 48 laps. You could definitely tell that he was struggling for grip, he was slipping and sliding, and that could be a result of all the sand on the track, but the other drivers seemed to be fine. So it was a little strange to see the Constructors' Champions for 2020 struggling for grip and all the other cars doing just fine. But I think everyone sort of let it slide and everyone kind of expected them to be a little bit better in day two. At the Williams garage, George Russell and Nicholas Latifi didn't actually test their car on day one. Williams actually appointed their test driver Roy Nissany for the first day of pre-season testing, and he got the entire day to test out the Williams for 2021. Then at the Haas garage, they did experience some gearbox issues in the morning session with Mick Schumacher, so he only completed 15 laps in his entire session. So those were the biggest events of day one. Now on to day two. So the fastest driver of the day two testing overall was Bottas. Second was Gasly, third was Lance, fourth was Norris, and fifth was Antonio Giovinazzi. Day 2 had a red flag caused by Lewis Hamilton, who spun into the gravel and was unable to remove his car from where he got stuck. The Red Bull of Sergio Perez experienced something very strange at the Day 2 preseason testing. As he was overtaking Nicholas Latifi, the engine cover of his car came off. Perez got into the pits as quickly as possible, and you can also see the Red Bull team members covering up the engine to prevent rival teams from seeing the inner workings of their car. The Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel also experienced some gearbox issues, causing him to only complete 10 laps total in the morning session. And then there were also a couple of spins from Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari and Nicholas Latifi in the Williams. At the Alpine garage, Fernando Alonso made his first appearance at preseason testing after breaking his jaw in a cycling accident soon before. On the last day of preseason testing, once again, Max Verstappen in the Red Bull came fastest of the entire session. Second was Yuki Tsunoda in the AlphaTauri. Third was Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Fourth, Kimi Raikkonen in the Alfa Romeo. And fifth was Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes. Although Carlos Sainz did finish in the top 5 on day 3 of preseason testing, he did have a brief halt within his session due to a hydraulic issue, but later in the session still managed to make it up to 3rd place. George Russell had his first run in the Williams on the last day of testing, with their test driver taking over the entirety of the Friday session, and the second driver, Nicholas Latifi, taking over the entire day 2 session. Hamilton stayed in his garage for the first hour of his session, and once he got out of the garage, he did have a few spins on the last few laps of his preseason testing. At the very end of the session, Carlos Sainz and Kimi Raikkonen came very close to causing a collision, but safely avoiding each other as a whole. So those were the main events that took place from day 1 to day 3 of preseason testing. So now let's unfold which teams are at the top and which teams are lagging a bit behind. So let's look at Mercedes first. To be honest, they didn't look too great. They seemed to have a few reliability issues and they were slipping and sliding quite a lot. So in general, they didn't look too good. But to be honest, I wouldn't be worrying too much. Teams don't give away everything during preseason testing, so I'm sure we'll see the true force of Mercedes at the first race of the season. From Formula One's data that they received, Mercedes still look to be the best car in terms of long run pace. So I agree with most people that think that Mercedes are sandbagging the testing. I don't really believe that they're showing their true strength. But I also don't want to say that, because what if they actually are having problems, and what if Mercedes are struggling a bit more than last year? I mean, it's not impossible. They are the team that is under the most amount of pressure at the moment, so to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised, but I also wouldn't be surprised if they're just playing an act, and if they're just pretending that they're not as good as what they were last year. I guess we'll only really see at the first race weekend. On to Red Bull. Red Bull looks pretty good. They look very reliable. They had absolutely no issues throughout the entire weekend, besides Sergio Perez's engine cover coming off. But besides that, they look pretty reliable and their car seems a lot more stable than last year. They were fastest on day 1 and on day 3 of testing, so things are looking up for them. While Mercedes were the fastest statistically on the long run pace, Red Bull seemed to be the quickest on short run pace, hinting at the fact that they might be a little bit stronger this year in qualifying, and they might be able to fight alongside Mercedes for pole position. Now on to McLaren. McLaren also looked pretty decent and they were extremely reliable. They had absolutely no issues, which I think a lot of people were surprised. I think a lot of people expected them to not be as good as they were last year, as they got a new engine from Mercedes for this year, and it does take a team and a car quite long to actually get used to a new engine. So I think a lot of people were expecting them to have a few issues, but they performed pretty well. McLaren are also using a different diffuser for this year. It seems pretty innovative, which will hopefully increase their performance. Aston Martin didn't give a lot away in pre-season testing. Not really sure where they stand at the moment. They did have a few gearbox issues and things like that, which could show that they have a few reliability issues and that they might experience that in upcoming races. But in terms of long run pace, they placed in third, so one could assume that they would be pretty good in races. Alpine also looked decent. Esteban Ocon placed in the top 5 occasionally throughout testing, and Alonso's return has gone pretty smoothly. His age and his broken jaw have definitely not interfered with his performance on the track. Ferrari seem to have improved their straight line speed. Their team principal, Matteo Binotto, said that their straight line speed will no longer be a disadvantage to them. So hopefully their straight line speed will have improved. They did start off a little bit slow in the beginning of the weekend, but they did improve throughout each day of testing. But both drivers had a few minor technical and reliability issues on the car, so it is a bit difficult to see where Ferrari stands at the moment. AlphaTauri, I would say, look the most reliable of any team on the grid. Pierre Gasly completed the most laps of any driver on the grid, and AlphaTauri tied with Alfa Romeo to complete the most laps of any team on the grid, with a total of 422 laps total. AlphaTauri also made it into the top 5 occasionally, showing that they do have the speed to be fighting at the top of the midfield. Alfa Romeo, as I said, tied with AlphaTauri in completing the most laps of any other team on the grid, so they also look pretty reliable. Kimi Raikkonen did the second most laps overall, and they made it into the top 10 occasionally. So in general, I think Alfa Romeo are pretty much exactly where they were last year. I don't think they've made too many improvements, however they do look extremely reliable and they do look like they have a stable racing car. Now onto the Haas F1 team. Haas seem to have done the least amount of development from the 2020 season. Statistically, they came last in the long run pace and 9th in the short run pace, so they pretty much look exactly how they were last year. And the last team, Williams, also looked pretty much the same. They were the slowest overall in the short run pace and 9th overall in the long run pace. So once again, don't expect too many developments from them. I don't see them improving into the midfield. They'll probably still be at the back with Alfa Romeo and Haas. So those are all the pre-season testing takeaways. To be honest, I don't see many changes from last year. I think it'll be pretty much the same. I think the thing I'm looking most forward to is seeing where Red Bull stand with Mercedes and if they really are doing a lot better than they were last year. And it'll also be interesting to see how McLaren fare up against their rivals with a new engine and where they'll end up standing with Alpine, Aston Martin, and all the other midfielders. So that's it for this video. If you enjoyed it, please give it a big thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button down below. If you have any questions, you can comment them down below about the pre-season testing or anything else that I've touched on in my previous videos. Forgot to mention, Drive to Survive is on Netflix now, so if you want to watch that, that is definitely a good way to start. They did miss a few things from the 2020 season, but as a whole it was a very good series. So if you want to get into Formula 1, Drive to Survive is a perfect way to start. Along with this YouTube channel, of course. Watch Drive to Survive, guys. It's good. It's really good. I promise you it'll get you into Formula 1. Like, promise you. Just give it a try. Just do it. I'm like a Nike sponsor. Just do it. Okay, I'm done. I'm so sweaty. Bye. See ya.